What's happening, everybody? My name is DMan, and this is a Solidworks tutorial to show you how I made this model, which is my final big, impressive, if you will, 3D printed crown, and I'm going to show you how I make it in Solidworks. Here we go. So obviously to start we're going to need to open up a new Solidworks part, and I constructed my crown from the bottom up, so we're going to go to the top plane, normal 2, and we're going to sketch a circle. From the origin, this is the interior band, so this is 210 millimeters in diameter. I'm going to select another circle, and this one is 230 millimeters. And we're going to extrude that by 30 millimeters. So this is our first part of the crown. It's the part where the fur attaches underneath the jewels. I'm going to go to the top of this, sketch, circle. Don't forget to select your plane. Make sure that you're selecting the top of the part so that it knows where to sketch. You're going to bring it out to here so that it's the same diameter. You won't notice the difference. Bring it out a bit further. This one is 240 millimeters and extrude it by 40. So this is the jewel band. This is the band above the fur that the jewel's attached to, and you can see that we kind of have a kind of a crown thing going on, if you will. So we're making good headway. We're making good headway. So obviously the crown has various bits above the headband, like the cross and the fleur-de-lis. So we're going to start with the cross, and to make the cross, it's kind of right here, isn't it? So it's not easy to sketch. I found the easiest way to do it was go up here and make yourself a new plane, tangential to the interior of the headband, and then just make it perpendicular to any of the planes. Because you have nothing sketched here, it doesn't really matter whereabouts you draw it, but once you have it done, once you have the plane done, we can go ahead and start sketching. I would start with a center line from the origin up, just to make sure that I'm perfectly perpendicular and everything else, and I know where my center of my crown is, of the cross, sorry. Once I have a center line, I'm going to sketch a midpoint line where the center line intersects here. I'm going to make that 40 millimeters across. And because that's shifted, I'm going to add a relation between this and the line. They're coincident. Lovely. So that's the bottom of the flared cross arm that we're going to use. Now we're going to go up here, we're going to get a center rectangle, sketch that right about there. The cross you can really play about with. I'm just using roughly the dimensions from my actual crown round about this. It doesn't matter too much, but don't make the cross too tall because it does contribute quite a bit to the overall height, and if you make it a bit too big, the crown can look a bit too tall. I nearly made that mistake. I'm going to offset this by about 25, maybe 20. Yeah, okay, that's better. So now I'm going to take this thing up here called the spline tool, and I'm just going to take from here, I'm just going to draw up, round, up to there. So you can see we have that kind of, that flowing arc kind of shape. And the spline tool is kind of cool. If you imagine it's a piece of wire defined by the points along it that we click. If you notice how each one does affect the ones around it. Not as visible here, but you can see that it is a connected line. So we're going to just play about with the spline, get a shape that we're happy with. I want it to be a bit steeper here, a bit smoother. That's okay. Doesn't need to be perfect, but you want to try and make it nice and smooth. Like if you leave it sitting like that, it's going to be painfully obvious that's not a perfect cross. Like I said, it doesn't need to be perfect, but it does need to be decent. So once you're pretty much happy with that, like that, we have half of our arm. And there's no point in trying to recreate it perfectly because humans, am I right? They're not very, they're not very good at replication. So what we're going to do is we'll go up here to our mirror entities button. We're going to select the spline that we just made, and we're going to flip it about the center line. So what that's done is it's perfectly flipped our half of our spline. And now that it's done, I'm just going to trim entities here and here. So now we can see we have our fully defined sketch. But the problem is there's only one arm, isn't it? That is a fairly significant problem. So we're just going to go up here to where it says circular sketch pattern. And where it's looking for this, you're going to select the center point of the cross right there. And entities to pattern, you're going to select down here. You're going to select both splines and the line at the bottom. It never seems to enjoy selecting the right point, but once you get it done, you can see that we have all four of them perfectly there. And these aren't colored in yet, so we're just going to trim entities to the edge. And there we go. It's not maybe exactly how I would draw it, but for the purposes of showing you how I did it, it'll do. We're going to extrude this by 7mm. I had to try and find a balance between something that was thin enough to look like metal and something thick enough that it would actually support the crown, because it is only 3D printed plastic. I found 7mm was okay. I was just kind of worried that 5mm would snap if it was handled too roughly. And 10 is obviously too thick. So we got to the point where we have one cross, which is good, but obviously the crown has more than one. It has four. And like we did with our circular sketch pattern, we're going to go up here to where it says circular pattern under our features tab. We're going to select under the direction here, we're going to select the interior, but not the face itself, the vertex where the face meets the top. We're going to select our crown under features, make sure this is set to 4, 360 degrees, equal spacing, hit the tick. Look at that, job done. We're going well, so we are. We're going well indeed. So, next step I did was the tall, curvy arm type things. And to do this, I go on my right plane and I sketch. Obviously, it's quite a tricky shape to get right, and I kind of wanted to make it accurate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here to where it says Sketch Tools, Sketch Picture, and I have a selection of images here of both completed crowns, 3D printings, whatever, fleur-de-lis. But this is the one that we want here. I just grabbed any picture the crown will really do, because it's the same hat, you know what I mean? So what this will do is it'll bring a picture in on the right plane, and we can then sketch on the picture as if it's not there, if that makes sense. So we're going to take the picture in, and we're going to scale it down so that it's approximately the right size as roughly the same size as the crown, you know, something like that. Maybe set that right to there, maybe a little bit bigger, right about there. So you can see that's roughly right. Obviously your crown won't be 100% exactly the same as this one, so I'm just going to move this over here. So it's right about where the cross on the picture here meets the arm up here. So I'm just going to set that to there. Hit the tick. So now this is stuck. What we're going to do is we're going to take our spline and we're going to start sketching from this point here. You're just going to go along here with your spline. Roughly, I found this at the center of the balls was a good place to latch onto and create the spline. Right about there is okay. Now we're going to go back down here, we're going to do the same again for the other side. Just bring it right up, try and keep it roughly this equidistant from the other line. If you get to a tricky place with a spline, as we'll see later in the fleur-de-lis, the trick is just to add a lot more defining points to stop it from misbehaving. Because you can always drag them around later and, you know, keep up with them. So once you have it roughly where you want it, like that's obviously not going to be perfect. You know, this is also like the cross. It doesn't need to be perfect, but you're trying to pretend that it's a bent piece of metal. Okay, so you do want it to be smooth, flowing, no like sharp changes. And even just like moving it around like this, I find was really helpful to make it, I mean, look at that, you know, really helpful to make it seem more natural. You don't want to make it look like it's done by a computer. You want someone to look at it and think that it is actually metal. Difficult perhaps, but that's the challenge, isn't it? So, once you're pretty much happy with your spline, as I nearly am, look at that, that's not good enough. So now we have this kind of, too big. This is where it does get kind of tricky. You do have this thing here, but you do want this to be 7mm as well, so we're going to define that as 7mm. So drag that down. No, no. We're going to drag this down a little bit, to right about there. Now what you're going to want to do is make sure that it hasn't affected your spline too much. It shouldn't really, but you know, try and keep it roughly the same distance apart. I'm sure there's a more official way of doing it to sort of like an extruded and a revolve, where you can like sketch the rectangle up here and then make it follow a contour down into the cross. This is the way I did it. I found it was pretty easy, so hopefully you do too. Once you're pretty much happy with it like that, oh, that's too flat. Once you're pretty much happy with it, like that for example, we've only gotten to here. So what we need to do is we need to take our straight line tool and go down like this. This is where it gets kind of tricky. Because it's a crown, people do tend to look quite closely. So you want to try and get this part right, if possible. Round about there. So what this is this is the arm that goes underneath here, but we obviously can't see because there's something else in the way. So what I just do is normally something like this, and then once it's finished, I can kind of, you know, make it a bit longer. Usually right about to there, so that when we do our circular pattern, you'll see that they'll all overlap and it'll just sort of make a solid object. You can move this up and down to sort of figure out whereabouts you want it to go. I think right about there is okay. So now you see we have this little profile. What we're going to want to do is go up to here to where it's extrude. But you see the problem is this is in the center, so we're going to go from bind to mid plane and set this to 40 so that it's the same distance as our I know the problem. It's very important to remember to close your sketch before you extrude it. So now we're going to extrude it 40mm, mid plane. And now you see we have this lovely crown-esque band up here, and just kind of, you can see how it attaches perfectly, and you can also see how the points define. You can see where the points are changing quite visibly. I probably wouldn't be quite happy with this if I was making the crown again, but you know, like I said, it'll do for now. Like last time, circular pattern. We're going to go ahead and select the interior. Nope, we do not want to select that. Exterior one will probably be okay for now. Select this. Job done. Look at that. So obviously there's something not quite right up here. And what this is this side's flat part is coming out and it's coming into this side of the arm. So what we can do to fix that is we can go into our sketch and we can just simply drag that back to right about there. And you can see we're nearly there. I know it's not quite exactly a perfect way to do it, but it works for the most part. So you will have this thicker section in the centers, and it is it it's not going to be perfect perhaps, but perfection would be nice. So I'm going to try see what that's. You should really never go any further past the halfway mark, because obviously you're going to get a hole in the center like that. That's not what you want. The main problem with this, I can see already, is that the top section here is too small. So we're going to go into our sketch and I'm just going to fix this up. Just add a relation so that that and that are vertical. That's nice and defined. Let's drag these back. Lovely. So you can see that's decent enough. There's a tiny, tiny, tiny overlap here, but nothing that would really affect the decency of the crown. When you might be making this crown, it will pay off to go in here, spend more time making sure that this is, not too far over, not too far back, that the flat section up here isn't too long or too short. There is a sweet spot. It's hard to find, but it is there. You can get it perfectly flat. I mean, it's not too tricky. So as you can see, we're nearly there. We're only missing the topper and the fleur-de-lis. So we'll do the fleur-de-lis next. I'm going to go to reference geometry. I'm going to select this. I'm going to select this. And this is crucial up here. You're going to want to go up to this and change this to 45 degrees. So now that we have our plane here, you can see that it's positioned in between the two crosses. You can select that and look at that. It's just so perfect that the entire crown is hidden when it's viewed from the right angle. That is computer efficiency for you, ladies and gentlemen. So we're going to go ahead and do another sketch on here. And like last time, we're going to bring in our sketch tool. We're going to go to sketch picture. This time I went for a fleur-de-lis. Which one? This one, I think. Let's bring this out. So that's down there. While that's there, I'm just going to leave that there for now. Put up a center line from here. Just so again, so that we know what we're dealing with. Oh dear. Let's rotate this quickly. There we go. So again, we're just going to take this, scale it down. Okay, that's obviously too big. Right about there, maybe? That looks okay. Position the fleur-de-lis as you would like to see it in your crown, but remember, look at this. You're going to want to keep that right there, because that will ensure. Just zoom in and look at the pixels. Look at that. That's centered enough. Take the fleur-de-lis. Obviously you don't want to sketch on it like this. So you're going to want to sink it down a little bit into the part. Right about there, I think will be okay. We just check our center line. Lovely. That's pretty much okay, so we'll hit the tick. Now we're going to get our spline again. We're basically just going to outline this thing in the spline. However, obviously we're not going to go all the way down here. So we're going to cut it over there, and we're going to leave this whole part down here solid. So let's see what that looks like. Okay, so just like the cross, I've sketched out half of the fleur-de-lis, and you can see I've put a little bar across here to help add integrity if it gets printed. And just like last time, we're going to go ahead and mirror our entities around, just like that line, that line, that line, and that line. Mirror about that, the center. Job done. A lot of entities. So now we have that, we can just go up to our features, extrude that by 7 millimeters. Let me just make sure it's going in the right direction. Oh. If you get this rebuild error, again, you need to go back, make sure that your sketch is fully defined, because most likely it will be where it meets the other parts that I always forget to define. Make sure it's closed. So let me just, yeah, that's going the wrong way, so flip that. So there we have a lovely little fleur-de-lis. Pretty nice. And again, we're just going to go circular pattern. Click that. Doop. Job done. So now you can see it's really starting to look like a crown. It's looking busy, it's looking excited, but there's something missing. The topper. In the real crown here, as you can see, we have this lovely little topper up here. So we're going to go ahead and sketch that. Oh. Save that. Always remember to save your parts, folks. So to sketch the topper, I'm going to go on here. I'm just going to sketch a... What I'm actually going to do, I'm going to change things up a bit. I'm going to create an offset plane from here. 30 millimeters offset. And you'll see why I'm doing this in a second. Basically, the sphere on the topper isn't actually a perfect sphere. If you look at these plans that I have for my crown, you can see this little line here. And that's basically because there's two different hemispheres put together. And that's because a perfect sphere looks weird. So what I wanted to create was kind of like a sphere that had been sat on, basically. So what I'm going to do here isn't quite the right thing to do, but you know, yeah. Oh, see, like that sketch. We want to make sure that we're sketching on this plane. Right about there. For this particular one, yeah, about 40 millimeters maybe. Yeah. Now we're going to insert features. No, that's right. So it doesn't let you create a dome unless there's something to create it on top of. So what I kind of do is extrude it by 0.01 millimeters. So this wafer thin piece that isn't really going to affect us. And we're just going to go to insert features dome. This bottom one is around about 30. No, go to 27. And we're going to go up here and we're going to insert features dome. And this one needs to be about 10. 15. Too tall. 13. 12. So you can see there we have a ball. It's not a perfect ball, but it is indeed a ball. And you might notice that it's sitting quite proud. In fact, it's not very dodgily attached to the crown. So what we can do there is we can go into our plane, we can edit that and say 25. And that'll just sink the whole ball down into the crown. So that's good. But again, in the real crown, we have this nice little cross up the top. And you might be thinking, oh dear, now I have to create an entirely new cross. But no, it is not so. For if we go here and we open our tree and we see the sketch for our original crown, Control C that. Okay, bear with me here. Bear with me. There is sense in the madness. We're going to sketch on the right plane. Paste. So there we have our entire crown sketch. And CAD Masters, look away now. What you're going to want to do, uh, this is the problem with dragging things around. It doesn't enjoy it. You're going to want to line it up so that it's above, and just grab it and sink it down into the sphere. Right about there should be okay. If you want to get it perfectly centered, you're going to want to select this one, add relation, origin, vertical. Yes. Make sure that your sketch hasn't completely disintegrated when you did that. But now that means that it's defined along the up and down axis. Definitions for sketches are a good idea. I'm going to leave that there and extrude it by 7mm mid-plane so that it's centered. So now we have this. Not a big fan. Let's go back into it and change that. I'm actually going to bring it up a little bit. I want to see a little bit more. But then we have these starting to poke out. So what we can just do is just sort of, kind of like, And because it's mirrored, it'll update the other one automatically. So you can see there we have like a sort of flowing into the ball kind of thing going on. Finish that. That looks much better. So there we have pretty much our finished crown, and you could print this and it would look pretty good, but there are some small features that we can add now to make it look even better. Mainly filleting. So what we're going to do is we're going to come down here and we're going to we're going to do a chamfer actually. I'm going to select that and that. Obviously those chamfers are far too intense. 5mm. Still a bit intense. 3. Yeah, okay, 3. You can see that we have like a nice sort of effect going on. Nah, 3 isn't even enough now. Indecisiveness, question mark? What is that? So you see we have that sort of effect, that chamfer on the thing. We can circular pattern the chamfer itself now. So that'll affect all of them at the same time. Hello? Okay, it doesn't like that. Alternatively, you can just go into your chamfer and select all the edges at the same time. And that'll do the same job. In fact, it'll save you an item on your tree, so and personally I like doing the same thing down here. Chamfering down here, not only does it make it look a bit nicer, I find that it actually does provide a bit of strength to the cross, and it helps reinforce it. So you can see that looks quite solid. It looks, yes, I'm not going anywhere. And once again, we're just going to make sure that we have the vertex where the cross and the headband meet. So now we have a crown modelled. There's only one thing left to do. Appearances, metal, gold, add it to the entire thing would be nice. And there you have it. That is your completed CAD model. You can then slice this into sections and print it out. I sliced mine into 4 or 8, depending on which crown you're talking about. And I also exported the topper as a separate file, just so that it would be easier to print, because you know. I'm sure you know yourself. So I have been DMan. This has been my first CAD tutorial on my St. Edward's replica crown. If you enjoyed it, let me know, and expect more videos on the crown to come. Thank you very much for watching.